It is time for our positive vibes only segment this week on Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington. Joining us from Australia, we have Shivala Dharma, a visionary, mystic, and author. Welcome to the show, Shivala.
Thank you so much, Renee. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us all the way from Australia. You are our first guest from Australia, so I'm happy to have you here.
Very good.
So I love the title Visionary, Mystic, and Author. Where did mystic and visionary come to that versus a spiritual leader? You know, what really made you take on that shift? You were prior to the interview telling me how you're shifting your title a little bit. But I love that. It's innovative, and it seems like it's more it's deeper than just being a spiritual leader.
Well,
So can you give us a little background on that?
I think it's because during the last several months, we have been seeing a lot of people arising and calling themselves spiritual teachers or integrating the narrative and the rhetoric of being a spiritual teacher, life coach, and all that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they are so much functioning as what you'd call a really ordained spiritual teacher that has had a true self-awakening, say self-realization, basically. And I would say that my work is not really so much about teaching. It is more about inviting people into that mystery of the presence of love itself. So it is more of a mystic path that I function through, so to speak. I like to invite people into having a direct experience of that mystic realm of life that is, in actual fact, is within everybody to start with. So I act as a catalyst for that, a mirror for that, and I will speak, but not so much to respond to questions, although I will respond to questions, but more so to give a person back to themselves, for them to recognize what do they know, what are they perceiving in this very living moment themselves, that they could bring their awareness to, rather than me giving them an answer.
Ooh, okay. So you're helping people to find that, and something I love, that finding that inner peace and finding themselves instead of telling them who they are, essentially.
That's
So
right, that's right.
I'm curious to know, and for our listeners especially, what really got you into this to begin with? I mean, you've spent the last 25 years teaching, attending workshops, holding trainings and events. What really inspired you to go about the world? You're not just working in Australia, you're all over the world as an advocate for helping people find that inner peace and be more loving and united, and especially with the craziness that's in our world today, to be a voice of change.
Right. So in response to that question, I could easily go over a very short synopsis of all the certain points that have occurred in my life. However, a lot of that information is already on my website and it's in other podcasts as well. But what I would say to you, which is the deepest truth for me, is that the intelligence of love, the mystery of love itself, is constantly impulsing me. It's moving me. It's wanting to express itself through me to be able to reach out to other brothers and sisters, regardless of their culture or nationality, as just to be able to share, to help others to embrace their suffering, to embrace their life path, to be able to know that they have the capacity to transform in this very lifetime. So love is moving me all the time in that respect. So it fills me with a great joy for that. And sometimes it's very dedicated in its focus, and I may seem very somber or very serious at times. However, it is still the intelligence, the mystery of love that is moving me. That's the deepest truth for me.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. And something that also stood out to me is that you actually had a spiritual awakening through a near-death experience when you nearly died in a car accident. And through that moment in your life, that life-changing experience, you were able to come about some ways to really change your focus and change your approach to life, to be able to get out of that tough time and to be able to be more positive and find that peace. So what are the strategies that you found through your near-death experience that helped you get through that time of pain and just, I can only imagine how devastating that must have been for you and for your family, to be able to overcome it and be more positive moving forward?
Well, I must pay homage in this moment to my father and my mother, because they were great inspiration for having to live tremendous adversity as they grew up, having lived tremendous amount of violence and abuse and lack of as well. And so they had a tremendous focus. And my father's focus for us was always stay positive and always give your best, be total in whatever you do. So originally, before the car accident, when I was playing competition basketball, competition football as well, in the same week, I had already as a teenager that tremendous drive and focus and passion to go for the ball, not to beat another person, but just to go for the ball, to give my best, to be total in that moment. So when I died in the car accident, it was like turning inside out, upside down. Everything changed. But those values that were there implanted within my psyche previously, they were still there. And so that coupled with this whole new vision of life, being able to actually see more subtly, you could say, being able to have a recognition that there is more to life than what I had perceived or believed in or programmed with prior to this, was awakening another level of energy. Through basketball and football, I experienced amazing levels of energy in what they call the second wind, the second layers of energy, even as a teenager. Well, after the death experience, it was like another third level of energy awakening in my body. So I would experience tremendous ecstatic joy out of the blue for no reason at times. And I would have to run from one bedroom to the next in the house, or if I'm walking down the street, running quickly down the street because the energy was just so overwhelming. But I knew at the time it was likened to that of playing football or basketball. But at the same time, it had another dimensional reality that was infusing it with tremendous, just pure joy. And I could sense that it's like the spirit of life was surrounding me and saying, yes, you are loved as you are. Run, dance, sing. You are loved as you are. And I could feel this. And so it would just give me more joy, basically, all the time.
I love it. And the incredible thing about this, and this is something that I really tried to also encourage and get people to realize, is, you know, when in order to go about these changes to find more joy and be happier and find those moments where you're like, you're just happy, you know, and you want to scream it from the rooftop, it just starts with a change in perspective.
Yes.
And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that the steps to being happier don't always equate to having to do something incredibly taxing on you physically, mentally, financially. You know, it's not a matter of having to change something big. It could be a subtle, small change that goes a long way.
That's
right.
And
I know you have a book coming out.
Yes.
In the spring of 2020. So coming up, Deep Peace Beyond Suffering. I love that title. And I feel like it embodies everything that you are standing for in your work. So can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect in your book, and maybe even some tips or strategies? I don't want to give too much away, but to encourage people to want to go out and check out your book. What can we expect in Deep Peace Beyond Suffering?
Well, let's go back to that moment after the car accident. There I am experiencing this awakening of incredible joy and moments of deep peace spontaneously happening. Yet I was in a household with a family where during the last 3 years, from 19 to 22, there is a considerable amount of suffering happening within my mother, my father, between my siblings and my parents. So we were in the middle of, like, it felt like a war zone at times. And yet there were great moments and great days as well. But in that extraordinary amount of suffering, I had to rely upon going within, finding that stillness again. And those moments would occur when I'm in the middle of, say, a suffering moment with the family being in like such craziness. My brothers and I had to walk out of the house just to get away from the madness. And but as soon as I come back in, I'd be practicing meditation in my bedroom. And so it was literally the art of being still, the art of breath awareness that would actually constantly support that peace that was arising already through the car accident. It was, you could say, illuminating it even more and making it more palpable whilst in the middle of that suffering milieu, you could say. So in reality, both truths were happening. There was great suffering and there was great peace. And so it really showed me that it's not necessary that we have to get free of all of our suffering and transform or transmute everything. It's about being dedicated to finding that peace in the middle of darkness. You could say finding the light within the middle of the darkness and learning how to work and to live within this paradox that we call life. So that gave me a tremendous amount of insight. So I also then started to introduce one of the meditations, which was gazing at a candle, because I read on the internet, not internet, but in a book one day. The internet wasn't around at the time, actually, but I read in a book something about a very ancient candle gazing meditation called Tratak. So I started practicing this meditation. And this is also illuminated within the book as well. You'll find that as well. In the gazing of the candle, it did the most extraordinary thing you could ever imagine, especially for a 21 going on to 22-year-old man, just entering my adult life. All of a sudden, after about 3 months of this candle gazing, I blew out the candle, watched the image of it in my forehead, which is around what they refer to as the third eye region, and all of a sudden it started to spread out and filled the whole of my head, and it intensified and intensified. Then it started to fill my whole, and a peacefulness was emerging from all of this as well, another level of peace. But then it started to fill my whole body. And it just kept expanding and expanding until finally my body form dissolved. All that there was me as an awareness, sitting on a chair with no awareness of even a chair for that matter anymore. But I was aware of sitting, in a sense, I was in the middle of formless light that had an extraordinary blissfulness that was with it. And in that moment, it was like being at home. It's like, oh, I know this. I know this. And I was ready to disappear forever, it felt like. I didn't need anything else. It felt like perfection, absolute perfection. And,
wow.
But all of a sudden it was like a message from life arose and said, no, you're not ready. It's not time. Life was indicating to me, we need you to be here still. I need to share this. So then I had to remember how to breathe, how to feel my body again, come back into my bodily consciousness. Then I lied down on the bed and just said, good night, world. Well, and that was it. And then I woke up in the morning. So, and that's never, that remembrance, the sweetness, the beauty of that has never left me. You can never forget something like that. And it reminded me of the quote from the Bible, even though I'm not a Christian per se, although I've read a great deal of the Bible, of course. in my own time, amongst many other Eastern books, when thine two eyes become one, thy body will be filled with light. And of course, that light is the light of divine love. It can be no other.
Wow. That's incredible. And thank you for sharing that and such, like, I feel like I could picture everything that you're saying and can feel everything that you're saying as you're describing it.
Well,
So
Renee,
I think it's go ahead.
May I just add to that, actually?
Absolutely, go for it.
Thank you. As I am describing, I'm glad you said that too, because as I'm describing it, something starts happening to my body as I'm sitting here, and I feel like my physical density starts to become a little bit more what's referred to as ethereal, and it's like slightly trembling a little bit more than normal, and it's like bubbly, tingling lemonade throughout my body. So I can sense that there's another kind of energetic transmission of that experience every time I recall it and I describe it. It's like I'm being transported back into that state to some degree, and I'm able to share that with another human being again, with you for a matter. So whenever anybody's really listening and focusing in on this, it may inspire them. And that's what I want to do in the first place, but it's not a planned transmission. It's just a spontaneous transmission, so to speak, that's occurring from the great mystery of life once again. So thank you for inviting me to share this. Much appreciated.
Oh, absolutely. I thank you for sharing this and giving us a little insight into what to expect. So along with your book that is being released this spring, what else can we expect from you in the future? What else can you share with us that you have coming up this year for 2020?
Right, okay. So my next event is a one-day residential retreat, you could say, which is on the Gold Coast, and it's called Unity Within Oasis. And the Unity Within Oasis is like a precursor, a preparation, a pre-education for the Unity Within, Unity in Community meetups that we're going to be holding more and more, as well as a Unity Within, Unity in Community, you could say webinars, basically, a series of them. My heart is feeling very strong to inspire others to really know, what does community really mean? What are the real values of community? And I don't mean just a social community, I mean real spiritual community. What does it really take? What can it provide in terms of support for others? And that's also, once again, that's another stepping stone to an educational program that I've already begun many years ago, but I'm now just bringing out into the world, which is called Emissary of Peace, Humanitarian Conscious Leadership Education Training. So that's Emissary of Peace, Humanitarian Conscious Leadership Education. And that is very much a program in order to provide a template for leaders, how they can become an emissary, an ambassador, in other words, of peace, and to be able to be that representative for peace through whatever vocation may be their expertise or their particular skills set or whatever their gift is, so they know how to be a true emissary of peace in the world. Because the way I see it, and the way that many people are recognizing now, peace is missing so much globally, it is not funny. So that is my vision, is how to bring this educational program into the world under the umbrella title of Emissary of Peace.
Wow, and I think something you touch on is the fact that all over the world, it's not exclusive to here I am in New Jersey in the United States, or for you in Australia. This is something that we all need to be better at, finding ways to, we speak about world peace, but what are we actually doing to work towards world peace? And what I like about what you just mentioned is the fact that you're now taking what you've learned, what you've experienced, to now teach other leaders to be able to be ambassadors of peace, to be able to expand. So now it's beyond, you're not the only one working, traveling all over the world to do so, but you have people around you that are doing the same thing and paying it forward to include others that also want to help and really selflessly help in this journey for peace in the world.
Yes, that's right.
We all know it's much needed.
That's right, Renee. And if I may just add to that a bit more too, this is why I'm bringing out these events called Unity Within Oasis. Because in order to really know and experience unity in community, one has to know unity within. So when anybody can start to contact that unity within and dedicate their life to that, they become an oasis for others. You provide an oasis. So even if we're providing a 30-minute webinar on, say, Zoom online, I still refer to that as being an oasis, because that is an oasis. Even for 30 minutes, it may be a moment where it might just save somebody else's life from a catastrophe or even committing suicide or a severe trauma that they can barely deal with. So the unity within is vitally important in order to experience unity in community, to be able to know peace within. That's why the book is called Deep Peace Beyond Suffering, but not to negate suffering. It's to embrace the suffering totally and to walk with that so that you can know peace that is in the depths of our being, our own essential being, in order to then be able to bring peace into the world. All the political strategies in the world right now are contrary truly to the alchemy, to the chemistry of peace. To bring peace into the world, you must be able to demonstrate that you can embody peace and that you can speak the language of true peace. That's an absolute necessity. It's existential. It's got nothing to do with philosophy or religion. It's just simply an existential fact.
Absolutely. I could not agree more with you. So where can our listeners follow you? Along with your website, where can they follow on your journey to keep up with all that you're doing across the world?
We have just gone and re-uploaded, I think about 20 or more YouTube videos that have been taken from a number of podcasts and interviews over the last few years. I had my YouTube channel down for some time whilst we were doing a lot of renovation, so to speak. And so that's just gone up. After this call, I will send that link to you, and then you can always post that. It will be put up on my website very soon as well. And of course, my website is shivallah.com, which is SHIVALLAH.com. And so the YouTube channel will be reinstated up on that website as well.
Perfect. Well, Shivallah, thank you so much for taking time to join us from Australia. I am happy to hear about all the exciting things you're doing to help spread peace, your book that's going to be released this spring, and I'm looking forward to seeing what lies ahead in the future for you as you're being, you're walking the walk that you are talking. So being and embodying peace and world peace is incredible, and continue to do that. I respect it. I appreciate it. And I hope that more people are inspired because of you to do so. So thank you so much for joining us for our Positive Vibes Only segment.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you so much. And may I extend an appreciation to you as well, Renee?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Anytime, I'm glad that I was able to have you here.
Yes, and well done for having such a wonderful podcast show as well, and be able to invite people such as myself. What a great service you are providing also for humanity. Thank you so much.